Good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about some PvP crewing and some other little tidbits to do with crew stats as it pertains to crewing and PvP. So, first things first, let's talk about the crew stats. Attack, defense, health. You've got raw numbers, and then you've got a bonus percentage here. When you are crewing your below decks, you this number, the percentage, is what matters, and you want to max this out. There's no point in going past this percent. So, my health is at 300%, and let's say I put more health, it doesn't go past that 300%. See, there's no point in doing that. This does not raising this number, the raw number here, does not raise your ship's hit points. Okay, so 9,173. We're at 300%, just to show. Health is 6.66 million. Let's see, we put more of those health officers on again. So we've raised the raw number up to over 24,000. If we go back and look, still at 6.66 million. Okay. There's no reason to go over the maximum percentage unless you have an officer that does something based on the percent of that raw number. That's when these numbers come into play. All right. Prime example, 5 of 11, weaponry is irrelevant. They increase your stats, shield, deflection, armor, and dodge by 600% at tier 3 of the total health of all officers. So that is when this number, the raw number, comes into play. That is when you want to stack that, okay? So unless you're working with officers that do something based on X stat, there is no need to go past the maximum bonus percentage. And on the Enterprise, that happens to be 300%. On other ships, it's different. Like the Mantis, I think it's like 450%. It depends on the ship how high that bonus percentage goes, but there's no point in going past it. So once you reach that percentage, you're good with your lower decks. You can then start crewing for below deck abilities, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. I just wanted to go over that first so everyone's all clear on that. Crew stats only matter when your bridge officers or even your below deck officer abilities say that it does something on these raw numbers here. All right, so let's talk about crewing. When you're first starting out in the game, and you get some chest pulls, and you start pulling officers. Some of the first PvP officers are going to be these three right here: Kamal, Vartok, and Rugor. All right, and these three commons are specialists in the three ship types. So you got Interceptor, you've got Explorer, and you've got Battleship. And this is basically your first PvP oriented crew. That being said, at this level, using your TNG crew is perfectly fine as well. If you don't have these guys yet, something like this is perfectly fine. These abilities work on the opponent's ship. It specifies opponent's ship. It does not specify hostile. It doesn't specify player. Therefore, it will work on both. It is just the opponent's ship. Whoever your opponent may be at that time, whether it's hostile or player. It's the same for all their abilities. Data just increases the ship damage. LaForge increases shield health, and Troy increases your mitigation stats. And they do not specify. Again, they don't specify while playing, while fighting a hostile, while fighting a player. It just is. They just do it. So this is also a valid PvP crew as well. But going back to the glory of the kill, glory in the kill group, you've also got Claw, Vixus, and Crass. Crass is really only useful in a base defense setting. You would have him as the leader, and he's reducing the captain's maneuver. We're not really going to go into base defense, but suffice to say, he's really useful in base defense. Claw, everybody should know who Claw is. Impulse guy, really good. I use Claw a lot in the early games. I still use Claw from time to time, depending on what I'm doing. You would use Claw with some combination of other officers. Vixus, really good one, reduces energy damage by 30% when playing against players. This does specify, again, these are PvP officers, so it is going to say against players. And then Rucor for the energy weapon damage. Fly around in your Terrace or your Jellyfish. This is something you can use. Or if you're flying around in your Fendra or any other interceptor, you've got Bartok with the kinetic damage. Alternatively, the defensive route would be Vixus and Kamal for kinetic and energy weapon damage reduction. This is kind of generic if you don't really know what you're going to be fighting. You're just out there fighting everything. This is decent. Alternatively, if you don't want to use Claw, you don't really care about your impulse speed, you just want damage, then you would use one of these three officers as your captain. And that's going to be Vartok giving you the Interceptor Specialist, Rukor giving you the Explorer Specialist, and Komal giving you the Battleship Specialist, each giving a % damage increase for that particular ship type. So you want to make sure you're matching that with whatever you're flying. And that's early PvP. I mean, that's like ops level 20 or lower kind of thing. Maybe even 25 or lower, because around that time you should be getting the faction shards for your faction pulls. Right here, the Federation recruit, you got the 1, the 2. It's based off of what your rep is. So for 100 credits, you'll be getting 500 at a time. You should relatively be getting these pretty easily, just doing dailies. At some point, you can start to farm for these tokens here from the messengers, and you can start doing exchanges for more credits. And just you should be getting these and pulling these as much as you can for these officers, because they're going to come into play a little in your mid game. I would say what I would call the mid game, and that's like 25 to like 33, just before you get to 34 and get those the G3 epic ships, right? So you pull the faction specific chests, and you're going to basically be looking at these rare and one epic officer in each. The uncommons are just kind of whatever. Sulu can be used for morale until you get Kirk. And then you really want to level up Spock as much as possible, as fast as possible. Uhura is okay, but really unusable, or unused, I should say, not unusable. And then in the Klingon, you've got Gorkon, your hull breach officer, and then Kurla, Azet Burr. Chang is whatever. He's not really used. Again, and the uncommons aren't really used. And then you have the Romulans, which is Nero with your burning and his crew. Same thing. You're pretty much only going to be using Kumak and Libis. The rest are just kind of, for away teams or whatever. If they're all you've got and you want to use the Nero crew, then that's fine too. But you want to be pulling these, and then the main goal for pulling these so much is to start getting transporter patterns, and then you can start filling in other officers like Khan. 6 is for armadas, but you've got Marcus is a good one for PvP. You've got Giorgio. There's not really great sourcing for Giorgio, but she's another burning officer that will replace Nero. DOS Kirk is a good one for PvP. Beckett Mariner, below deck ability is good. Just flat weapon damage. But back to the specific crewing, it's going to be, so you're past your 20s. You've got some decent officers now, and you're ready to crew a ship. And this is pre G3 Epic. This is pre Enterprise. This is pre Augur, pre D4. Okay. Basic simple setup. Going to be Kirk, Spock, and whatever. Kirk, Spock, 2 main. You get the morale, and then you get the increased shield health when you have morale. Spock needs to be leveled up as high as you can get it. The higher the better. Really doesn't start popping off until tier 4. Before tier 4, you could do Bones. My Bones is on an away team, but you would put Bones as a captain. Then Kirk, Spock. Bones increases the officer abilities by 20%. This is something you can do if you only have your Spock, say like tier 3. I honestly, if it's anything less than tier 3, I would not use Spock. And Kirk, you should try to use something else. And that something else could be the Nero crew, if you got that. It'll be Nero, Kumak, and Livis. I think I passed it. I did. Nero, where are you? Am I blind? Oh, I am blind. He's here. So you would use Nero, Kumak, and Livis. They're both on away missions. So Kumak would give you mitigation stats if the enemy ship is burning. Nero is applying the burn. Every time your ship is hit, or no, every time your ship strikes the opponent, aka every time you hit the enemy, you've got a chance to burn. So if you're on a ship with multiple weapons that hits multiple times, you're basically going to burn them every round. And so based off of burning, you've got increased mitigation and Livis with just a flat increase to hull health on a battleship. So really going to be using this on a battleship, say, your Kumari, right? This would be fun. I will say that burning in PvP is not really good, primarily because PvP does not at this level doesn't last many rounds. I mean, we're talking like 1 to 3 rounds, maybe 5 to 8 max. And burning only does 1% of the hull health per round. So if let's say it goes a maximum of 8 rounds, you're only doing like burning is only doing 8% of the damage. So you're not really using the burning for the damage, you're using the burning for these other stats. And then Joy and Vengeance is the captain maneuver for Nero here, and it basically just increases the weapon damage by 40% while burning. And this gets boosted with the synergy, of course. So in PvP, you're only using the burning to activate the other officer abilities. And then on an interceptor, you can run the Hull Breach crew. You've got Gorkon, Kurla, Azet Burr. Kurla increases critical hit damage when firing a kinetic. So this is going to be on your interceptors primarily, because your interceptors have more kinetic weapons. And then you've got Azet Burr, who every time the shit hits the opponent with a weapon attack, it increases the armor piercing by 20%. And you know, the little caveat is with multiple shots, only trigger this ability once. And this doesn't stack. It doesn't say it's cumulative. So you only get a flat 20% every round, but that's still a lot. And then you've got a high percent chance to hull breach with Gorkon. Obviously, you have him leveled up, the higher it's going to be, up to, I think it's 100%, or it might be 90%. I think it's 100%. Let's see. Next level will be 5. So yeah, okay, 90%, up to 90%. And then his captain's maneuver, which does get boosted, but by himself, it's a 10% for the first 2 rounds. Increase the chance of getting a critical hit. So he's going to increase your crits, and he's going to provide hull breach, which hull breach is just a simple flat damage increase multiplier. Makes all your hits hit harder. And I forget exactly how much. You can go look it up though. So this is the other crew you're going to get. And again, you're pretty much you're only gonna want to use this on an interceptor. Otherwise, you can just use Gorkon. So you could do Kirk Spock Gorkon. That's valid. It's going to give you shield regen, and it's going to provide hull breach. Or once you get Honor Guard Worf, Kirk Spock, Honor Guard Worf, and he simply, if I can find him, increases critical hit chance for 8 rounds. And back to what I said, 8 rounds is more than enough, right? Because PvP at this level, anyway, as far as I understand it, only goes a few rounds. I personally can't remember or recall the last time I've had a PvP log over 3 rounds. Quite frankly, it's just over quick. These ships do a lot of damage at this level relative to the health, so they're just not gonna last very long against a proper PvP crew. Then obviously, as far as the cookie cutter builds are concerned, if you've got the money and or were lucky, it's going to be the strike teams. You've got the interceptor strike team, and again, at level 1, these are the best. Okay, these are the best of the best. This is going to cost you money and or luck with certain events. I got the rare officers. I forget what those tokens were from, like the Player of the Month token, and I think you could buy them, some of the tokens as well on the store at one point. But for one of those tokens, you could get the rares of each of the strike teams. So I did that, and then there was an event where I forget what event it even was, but first place gave you a full pull of the Interceptor Strike Team Epic and the Explorer Strike Team Epic. So Wei Yun and what's this guy's name? Gold Ducat. And then I got La'an from a lucky pull out of a pack. I can't even remember what pack it was, but and it was actually funny because I thought it was a guaranteed of the three, because it had the three officers in there. It had La'an, it had Wei Yun, and it had Gul Dukat in there. But I didn't like read it fully, so it was just a chance to get them, and I ended up getting La'an. And then again, I got the rares from that event. But these are going to be the best of the best, even at level 1. They're just insanely strong for what they do. So can we stop doing? I hate this. Wei Yun's going to give you your morale, and then he's also going to increase weapon shots. Pawn, he's going to decrease the opponent's critical strike chance. So they're going to be dealing less damage to you. And this guy, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, increases your weapon damage. And then you've got for your Interceptor Strike Team, you've got your Hull Breach, 100%. You've got increased number of shots while the enemy has Hull Breach. And then you've got, while the enemy has Hull Breach, you've got critical hit chance increase. Okay, no, I'm sorry, back that up. If you score a crit, you decrease the opponent's critical hit damage by 25%. So not their chance, but the damage of the crit, you're reducing it by 25%. And then this guy increases your critical hit chance while the opponent has Hull Breach. So Hull Breach gives you more damage overall, and then while they have Hull Breach, they're going to be doing less damage, and you're going to be doing even more damage. And then you've got the Battleship Strike Team. So you're going to get Burning. Okay. And then while on a battleship fighting a burning player, start of each round, La'an increases the number of shots. So you're going to get increased shots equaling more damage and equaling more chance to get this burning off, because the burning procs off of ship hits. And then you've got, while fighting a player, Ortegas causes weapon shots by them. So their weapon damage will have a 40% chance to have their next attack delayed by 1 round. That's pretty big. So that's like that's a whole round that they're just not shooting. And then Strike Team Una, you're gonna, while fighting a player, decrease their shield mitigation by 25% each round. So when you're attacking, you've got mitigation that takes effect, and then that number past mitigation, whatever that is going to hit your ship. Your shields are going to take 80% of that number. The other 20% is bleeding through to the hull. So decreasing that shield mitigation by 25% makes them take more damage to the hull. Their shield will absorb less of that hit. So all that means is you're getting more damage to the hull. So you're delaying their attacks, and you're putting more of your damage to the hull, and you're hitting more, 140% more. So those are the big three, the main three. Those are what you want to strive for. Currently, they are the best PvP officers in the game. There is nothing better currently. So, backpedal a little bit. If you don't have them, you're looking at people like Kirk and Spock, Nero, etc. So when you do get the G3 epics, you're gonna want to take Spock out if he's on. If you're dealing with the Enterprise, because again, Spock doesn't go on the Enterprise. And just yesterday, I can't remember who it was, but I saw someone with Spock on their Enterprise, and I meant to message him. I'm like, hey, I don't know if you're just memeing around or what, but your Spock is useless, and this is why. The Enterprise has a ship ability that, as long as you have morale, the Enterprise heals the shields by 25% whenever it gets hit. This is Spock. This is what Spock does. This is a shield heal, and they don't work together. Okay, there's like a bug in the game or something. I mean, they're not supposed to work together, but it's going to be the ship ability that's giving you your shield heal when you're talking about the Enterprise. But I think there's like a bug in the game, if I remember right, that Spock kind of takes over. So if you have like a low level Spock, you're really getting screwed on the Enterprise. But again, do not put Spock on the Enterprise, because the Enterprise has the Spock ability built into it. Okay? You just need to give the ship morale. And you do that with Kirk. You don't have to have Kirk as an officer. So for the Enterprise, you would just slap Kirk on there somewhere, and then you could say put 5, right? That's your mitigation. And then you would do something like Gorkon, or you could do Marcus. If you're fighting another explorer, they're going to pierce the shield of the other ship, and that's kind of what you want to do for explorers. Or you could put Khan in there. He's going to give you crit. Or the better one to do, because Khan is like 3% cumulative, and cumulative meaning stacking every round, and being that PvP doesn't last very long, as we've said, it's not going to stack very high. So you want something like Honor Guard Worf, who just gives you a flat 50% for 8 rounds. That's level 2 though, so I think level 1 is 40% or something like that, 30s. Regardless, it's gonna be more. It's gonna be more than Khan. If you don't have Worf, you have the Picard era officers. Their abilities give you a flat 900% damage bonus based off of a ship type. So Picard's going to be the Explorer. Picard Riker is going to be battleships, and Picard Worf is going to be interceptors. They're not bad. They're just not, quote unquote the best. The 900% is on the base, so it's not like a total 900% increase. That would be insane, but it's 900% base weapon damage, which is still a good amount. Alternatively, Lorca is a good one for hull breach. He's gonna, at level 1, give you 60% chance. So if for whatever reason you don't have your Gorkon leveled up, he's gonna be the better option. And then while we're talking about Lorca, he's also a good captain for PvP. So when you're fighting players at the start of each round, if the opponent has hull breach, you're going to decrease their weapon damage. So you would do something like Lorca, Captain Tilly. Captain Tilly is your mitigation while fighting, while your opponent has hull breach. And then again, you would go with Honor Guard Worf. You would go with one of the Picard eras. You could, if you're doing capture nodes, you could go with Emperor Giorgio. But that's very niche. So it's probably going to be, something like one of the Picard era crew members. You could do Honor Guard Worf, as I said, and then that's pretty much going to be it, or any other officer that kind of makes sense here with whatever decent PvP ability. And then that brings me into, you need to understand what these abilities do and make sure you are reading them properly. Non-player targets is keywords you need to be looking for. So if you see this non-player targets, then this is not a PvP officer and you do not need to be messing with it for PvP. When fighting hostiles and armadas is other wordings you need to be looking for, because this specifically states it only works for hostiles and armadas. So anything that says opponent's ship, player, those are what you're looking for. TOS Kirk is good as well for providing morale, and he also gives you increased weapon damage, or energy weapon damage specifically, based off of your defense. So he's a good one. So you can do TOS Kirk, Spock, and then whatever other supporting officer, whether it's Lorca, Gorkon, Honor Guard Worf. But as far as cookie cutters, that's pretty much it. This crew right here, the Lorca, Captain Tilly, and Honor Guard Worf, I use this quite a lot before I got the strike teams. This is a really good crew. It's a really good crew. Kirk, Spock, Gorkon, also good. I use that quite a bit as well. I didn't really use the Nero crew at all. It's just not as good objectively, number wise. It's just not as good. But if that's all you've got, then that's all you've got. And that basically covers the quote unquote cookie cutter builds. You can use 5. You can use 5, 6, and 8 or 9. Excuse me. You can use 5, 6, 8, or 9. And that's just basically giving you maximum irreverence, or weapon rate is irrelevant, and then giving you a little bit of bonus to your, stats. You can use this. It's not going to be the best, but if that's what you got, that's what you got. And that's pretty much it. So anything else, you're just going to have to fall back into reading what the officer does. Does it make sense? I.e., is it boosting damage? Is it giving mitigation? Is it providing some sort of stat that activates another ability, etc.? Is it working against players? Make sure it doesn't say hostile or armada only. Just make sure you're reading the abilities. If you have any questions about your officer specifically, and you want to maybe sit down, do a little screen share session, and go over what you have, and I can make some recommendations, more than happy to do it for any of you guys. Hit me up on Discord, and we can go through it. But that's going to be it. I've already went a little longer than I wanted to, get a little long-winded, because there is a lot when it comes to crewing in general. It's just so there's so many officers, there's so many different combinations, so many different things you can do. I've recorded this video like 7 different times already, and this is just going to be the one that makes it. I know there's a lot still to be said, but again, it's going to be specific to your account, what you have, your officers, and what level they are, etc. What ships you have, even, it is going to go into the decision making for your crewing. So again, hit me up on Discord if you have specific questions and want to maybe go over your specific account, what you should be using. More than happy to do that. So take it easy. Have a good one.